Hey guys, it's Quickie Baby and welcome to a quick tank review, this time of a Tier 7 Russian premium tank destroyer, the Su-122-44. Now a shout out to Roadrunner for this tank. I wouldn't be able to review this without you, so thank you very much, sir. So to give you a general overview quickly of this tank, it's a tank with fairly good armor, really good DPM, really good mobility for a tank destroyer that lacks view range and killing penetration. So as with all my premium tanks, I like to train up crews without penalty from other tanks. So here you can see I'll take my ISU-152 crew and put them in my Su-122-44. And before I get a million questions of how I just did that so quickly down in the comments, that is an add-on, XVM, one of the only two add-ons that I use that allows you to quickly take your crew from one tank and put them in another. Very handy if you've got a series of premium tanks in your garage. So as you can see here, the blurb will say this crew member is not trained for the Su-122-44, however he can use his skills and perks because he is on a premium vehicle of the right type. Enough said about that, let's get on with the Su-122-44 review. Taking a quick look at the stats, this tank has got 840 hit points, which isn't the hugest amount, but it's basically in par with the other Tier 7 TDs. It's fairly light, 33 tons, and it's got a pretty good engine of 500 brake horsepower. This means that this thing can shift, and it can quite easily get up to its top speed limit of 47.5 kilometers an hour, which is really good. Now, one of the amazing things about this tank is its excellent traverse speed of 42 degrees a second. Now, looking at the armor, we can see that the front is very well angled, the side is not very well angled, and the rear is obviously just flat. If you get shot in the back of this tank, it's very easy to penetrate it even with HE ammo. In the side, it's fairly easy to penetrate here with high caliber HESH and HE ammo. But there are very few tanks that will be able to meet this, that will be able to fire HESH at it. Let's take a look at the frontal angle of the tank. It's very nice, and the lower plate is quite well hidden, so it's quite hard to hit the lower plate on this tank. The upper plate is 90 millimeters of armor, which means that if you angle it slightly between shots like this, they won't be able to penetrate your side armor here, that you've got a fairly good chance of bouncing up to 150 to 200 millimeters of penetration shells. Now everyone wants to know about the strengths of this tank destroyer, and that surprisingly is probably the armor and the mobility of this tank, because its gun is a little bit of a letdown almost in every way. Now the tank has got fantastic rate of fire, 7.5 rounds a minute, combined with a 390 alpha damage mean that this tank can pull off some serious DPM. However, with only 175 millimeters of penetration at Tier 7, that's barely enough to get through some Tier 7 heavy tanks that it meets, such as the T29. You'll have to aim very carefully at a T29 frontally to be able to penetrate it, and if you engage Tier 8 heavy tanks, they will absolutely chew you up. They can 2-hit you. For example, an IS-3 can 2-hit you quite often in this tank if they roll high on one of the shots. Whereas you literally are not going to be able to penetrate the front of an IS-3 with this tank unless you get very lucky. Now the tank is not the most accurate at 0.41. and its aim time is 2.9, which means that you have to spend significant time aiming at the enemy. However, this 2.9 second aim time is not horrific. It's not like 3.4, like quite a few of the Russian heavy and TDs. Now the tank has got 330 meters view range, which means it's pretty much blind. This means that either you need to equip binoculars as well as the rammer and the vents to be able to spot for yourself, or you're literally going to be able to just have to get into a position to assist your front line who are spotting for you. Now one of the interesting things about this tank is if you want to play like that, if you want to snipe at people at long ranges, you're not really going to have the accuracy or the penetration to go in them unless you get very lucky. Really, this tank is a bit more of a brawler slash flanker that can catch enemies unaware and use its amazing DPM to rip them apart and wiggle its troll armor left and right to try and bounce using its front plate. This is the Tier 7 regular tank destroyer, the Su-152 that you're looking at here, and we can see that the rate of fire on the Su-122-44 is slightly worse than on the regular version of the tank. The regular version gets 8.11 rounds a minute rate of fire, whereas the premium version, it goes down to 7.5, so immediately you're doing less overall DPM than the Su-152. However, this really is where the disadvantages end, because you have amazing traverse speed compared to the Su-152. You have amazing frontal armor, you have amazing side armor, you have an amazing engine power to horse ton ratio, and you've got a better top speed limit than the Su-152. Of course, you're not able to load heat rounds with 250 millimeters of penetration and the 152mm gun, with the SU-152 that gives you a little bit of extra flexibility to become an absolute beast at tier 7 with 700 alpha damage. But still, it might be worth considering that the SU-12244 is a better gun platform that only loses a bit of the rate of fire compared to the SU-152. I did not keep the SU-152, even though it is such an amazing tank when it gets the right situation, when it gets to just unload and unload and unload on weakly armored targets. The SU-152 is possibly one of the best tanks in the game. However, I would far rather play this SU-12244. You lose a bit of the rate of fire, but for that loss, you gain a hell of a lot of flexibility. This is a much better gun platform than the SU-152, and I fully recommend this tank if you've gone up some of the Russian tank destroyers and you want to have a premium tank to train some crew in and to have some fun, and also make some credits, as hopefully I'm going to show you in this gameplay. So here we go, we're playing the SU-12244 on a new map, Sacred Valley. I will say though, when I played this game, that Sacred Valley had not been out for a very long time. And you'll probably see that in my gameplay. Still, it'll be very interesting to see how I played this tank without very much experience on it on the live server. So looking at the matchup, this is what I would call a smash and grab game, although it's only because I'm situated on the team, which is unusual. The teams are fairly evenly matched, apart from myself. And we're against mostly tier 6 and 7 tanks. So I really like to go up onto the hill on Sacred Valley and try and shoot down into the encounter. Thinking back on this game and considering the strengths of this tank, I probably wouldn't go up here. I'm checking there to see that the front of my tank is not through the bush for the initial shot. Of course, as soon as I fire, the bush will become void, and it's likely that I'm going to get spotted by the enemy. As I'm using my ISU-152 crew inside this tank, I do have 6th sense, so I will be able to know if I have been spotted. Now this is the perfect kind of shot for the SU-12244. Broadside of a Panther, but unfortunately, as we can see there, we're unable to hit the target. Our second shell, however, is able to brutalize him for 389 damage, and we haven't been spotted yet. Check out that rate of fire. I didn't really give quite enough lead on that tank looking back on that shot, but you guys are seeing what kind of a rate of fire this tank has. Absolutely fantastic. 7.5 rounds a minute with 390 alpha damage. This is the stuff that dreams are made of, being able to shoot a tiger moving very slowly at just over 300 meters. Taking that tiger out, and bam, we were able to do 1,236 damage to that tiger very quickly. So, 2,000 damage up. You guys might get an idea of what this tank is good for. Brutalizing fairly lightly armoured tanks with its insane rate of fire. And the fact that its accuracy is only 0.4 doesn't really make that much of a difference now in the 8.6 patch. So I decided that I wasn't going to get any more action there. So I have gone north instead because, you know, I want to get some experience, I want to get some damage done, I want to make some money. That's why we're playing these premium tanks. And we'll see at the post-game results that, yeah, you can make some money on these tier 7 premiums. So I'm feeling a bit confident now, and I'm really rushing into a situation that maybe I should have taken a bit more cautiously. Still, unfortunately, there was a wall there that was perfectly in line with the top of his tank that I shot instead of the enemy tank. And there we can see the risk of running speed governors on this tank, that I just knackered the engine. I'm still learning this map. I don't know if I was able to have a shot on the VK there, and it was clear that I wasn't. He was behind a ridgeline. So I'm going up and after this owl. the ARL. So this game has turned around. I thought, this game's over, I'll just rush in and get a bit more experience, and that'll be fine. And now, as you can see, the game has really changed. These walls are very, very, very annoying for tank destroyers, as you have seen. And I've been spotted. I know that there's an SU-8, and I watch my back to make sure that T-43 doesn't get me. I see that he's just been destroyed with one shot, so I try and use the excellent traverse speed to try and turn. I fire a very bad snapshot there at the T-43, who managed to penetrate me on the way in. And this is where the great traverse speed allows me to turn the tank around completely and get a good shot off. If I was in an SU-122, I'd be dead here, but I would never play like this with an SU-122. Unfortunately, I could have had a shot there on the VK, but I didn't make it. And then look, here we go. Great traverse. I bounced the Hellcat shot. Unfortunately, I overturned, which was really bad play. That's amazingly bad play. But I'm being forgiven for it, with a bit of luck. And we make a kill on the Hellcat. And the VK302 DB was just killed by our Yag Panther from the hill. So that was a bit of a hairy situation. But that's one of the reasons why I wanted to show you this replay. To show you the excellent traverse speed on this tank, and just showing that you can play it more like a brawler than most of the other TDs in the game. The SU-122 is a completely different tank to this one, the SU-122-44. I will clarify that the tier 7 Russian tank destroyer just doesn't compare to this premium version. So I've been spotted at range. See the Panther zeroing in on me. I want to get a shot off on him. And I pull back, trying to angle my armor a little bit, and the Panther misses his second shell. I keep pulling back. I angle my tank in. Doesn't quite catch my backside. I know that there's an artillery aiming about as well. And although this game is pretty much over, and there's the artillery shell that we just saw, it's not completely over yet. So you can see the Panther there. I go forward to crush the wall to be able to get a shot off on him, but he's behind the wall. I decide to go for the VK instead, and have a very slim shot on his cupola. But I see there's a Panther there instead. Still haven't got a shot on the Panther. We go back to the VK. See the Panther's moving forward. Fire a great leading shot in there into the Panther. And I really love the alpha damage on this gun. At tier 7 TD with 390 alpha damage, it's just lovely. It's lovely. When we consider that the Yag Panther, which is fairly comparable to this tank when you think about it, has got 320 if it uses the 105mm tank gun. Makes the 122 of this SU-122-44 all the better. So I've only got one shot left in me. I'm still going to go hunting after this Panther. I want to try and pick up as much as I can. I'm wondering where the artillery is and where that Panther's gone. He's disappeared. That's not good. It's not good to be in a TD and not know where the enemy are when you've only got one shot left in you. And there he is. There's the Panther. I decide that I'm not interested in the Panther. Or maybe I decide that I am. Maybe I think that I'm not going to get the artillery in the next 20 seconds, so I might as well go for the Panther. Here we can see I'm using my speed governors again, even though my engine's wrecked, but I turn them off. Here you can see how fast this tank is. It's really fast. I try and navigate my way down, and I think I get myself stuck on this rock. Yep, brilliant. So, still trying to learn Sacred Valley. Watch out for those rocks when you slide down that ridgeline there. Just speed the game up just a little bit. We can see that the SU just made a kill. Not sure where he is at the moment. Again, just so you can gauge the speed of this tank. Here we are going along the flat. Although it's fairly bumpy, just between 30 and 40 kilometers an hour. Remember, the top speed limit of this tank is just over 47, which means that if it can get on hard ground, it's really able to motor. That's why I like to use speed governors in this tank, even though it does wreck the engine very quickly, is that the extra horsepower does allow you to go up to that top speed fairly regularly. So let's try and find out where this scumbag is. I'm thinking maybe he's really sneaky and he's gone all the way to our spawn to try and hide from us. And yep, there he was running away from us. And unfortunately, we don't get the kill on the artillery to finish the game. But still, it was a fairly good result in the SU-12244. And I feel like, although this wasn't the most technical replay, I really showcased the strengths of the tanks all in one replay. So you saw how it can brutalize enemies at medium to long ranges, either where it's spotting for itself or its friends are spotting for it, as long as the enemy don't have very thick armor. So for example, we were able to get good shots off on that Panther, and especially on that Tiger as he was advancing over the bridge. That was just a dream to see that Tiger do that. And then, thinking that the game was already won, I decided to play very aggressively to try and pick up some more, and I nearly donked out really. But due to the great traverse speed of this tank, the great alpha damage, and the fairly troll frontal armor, we're able to go into a situation which we really shouldn't have been, but still come out on top. And that's what you really want in a premium tank, something just have a bit of fun in, not take it too seriously, and just to go in and try and make some credits. And let's take a look at some post-game stats. So we can see that we picked up 4,052 experience for our double with our premium account, making over 100,000 credits. We did 3,300 damage. Quite a lot of that was to tier 7 tanks, and quite a lot of that was that brutal start that we made. We were able to hit the Panther, and we were also able to brutalize that Tiger. Now we only got 3 kills, but we were still able to get that 1,351 experience without the premium. We hit 10 out of 13 shots, so that showed you that the accuracy of this tank isn't the best. It looks like with our binoculars that we were able to do actually quite a bit of assistance of spotting damage from that upper ridgeline, so that really mitigates the awful 330 meters view range that this tank has by using those binoculars. There is very good justification to change the binoculars for, say, a gun rammer in this tank, considering what its rate of fire is, but you'll have to play it in a completely different way. I feel that with binoculars you're able to spot your enemies at longer ranges and play the tank a lot more solo, whereas maybe with a gun rammer you're able to provide more effective support from range. So you guys have seen the weaknesses of this tank. Its poor penetration of 175mm mean that you can get bounces against heavily armored tanks when it meets tier 8 and 9 tanks. There is a possibility to load APCR, but don't think they will become I win buttons because they only have 217mm of penetration. This is the same 122mm that's on every other tank that the Russians have around this tier. However, the novelty of this is that it does have a 7.5 rounds a minute rate of fire. All in all, I think the SU-12244 is a pretty fun tank. I personally wouldn't buy it for myself because I don't really enjoy it. I'd rather be playing something with a turret, and if I have to be playing a tank destroyer, then really it has to be the ISU-152. I would also personally rather play a box tank at tier 6 than play an SU-12244 at tier 7. The SU-100Y has got 440 alpha damage at tier 6, which means that it can one-hit quite a few tier 4 and 5 tanks that it can meet. Whereas the SU-122 with 390 alpha damage makes it even hard to two-hit tanks that are lower tier than it can meet. Still, you can't complain about the gun platform that is the SU-12244. Great speed, great traverse, 42 degrees a second, that's massive for a tank destroyer, and fairly troll 90mm frontal armor that's well angled. This is really a great platform for the 122mm gun. I recommend this tank if you think you can make it work, knowing what I've told you, and good luck to you. If you're engaging one of these tanks, do not take it lightly. Do not think that you're going to be able to flank it because it's got such good traverse speed that it's going to be able to turn and shoot you. What you need to do is really try and catch it unaware and make sure that you take advantage of the fact that it's only got 840 hit points to try and execute it before it's able to unload on you. The problem with this tank when you're engaging it is that it's got 390 alpha damage, which is massive, so you don't want to trade shots with it. And equally, it's got 7.5 rounds a minute rate of fire, which means that, like, if you're in a T-29 for example, and this somehow catches your side or your rear, you're going to be in a hell of a lot of trouble, because it's going to be able to rip you apart. And fair enough, you might be able to kill it before it kills you because of the health differences, but you're going to lose a lot of health to take this thing out. If you've got any kind of frontal armor on your tank, such as you're in an IS-3 or even a T-29 or a T-32, use your armor well against this tank, because unless it loads premium rounds, it's going to find it very hard to penetrate the front of your tank with only 175mm of penetration. All in all, one thing I would definitely say is do not underestimate this tank, and do not leave it to fire at you. Just do not let it fire at you. It's just like an SU-122, you cannot leave it alone to just open fire at you. You have to take it out of the game effectively and minimize its gun damage. So guys, I hope you've enjoyed this review. I hope it's been helpful to you, not only from the fact that maybe you want to buy this tank now, but more from the fact that hopefully you now know the strengths and the weaknesses of this tank, and to take it quite seriously if you see it on the battlefield. It's not a joke. If you've enjoyed this, please think about rating it down below. I'd really appreciate it. And why not leave some comments telling me what you think about the SU-122-44. Do you have one? Do you like it? Do you think you might get one now that you know more about it? What do you guys think? As always, thanks a lot for watching. You've been epic, and hopefully I'll see you soon.